We have to start with the basic question. What the heck is going on with the Washington Capitals? This is not the team that we saw last season.
Craig, it is very surprising, I think, to a lot of people around the league and even to the folks who are closest to the team. Look, they went out and they made a lot of acquisitions in the offseason. I mean, they essentially turned over a third of their roster. They brought in 7 new players. Typically, and we're seeing it with Nashville, right? When you turn over a lot of your roster, it takes a while for guys to get acclimated and on the same page and comfortable with the systems and with their surroundings. And that hasn't happened here in Washington. Everyone kind of hit the ground running, and they've gotten off to this really hot start. Last night's loss to Toronto, notwithstanding, and it is a little bit surprising. I mean, for me, I thought they were going to maybe have some peaks and valleys through October and maybe even into November, and then would hit their stride because they did go out and get quality players. I thought they were going to be better than last year. I think that was the expectation for a lot of people, but we thought it was going to take longer. It just reminds me of the old adage. I mean, you can't make the playoffs in October, but you can miss them. So, getting off to this strong start, I think, has got the Capitals in a position of strength going into the rest of the season.
All right, we're obviously going to talk about Alex Ovechkin in a moment, but I want to talk about some of the other pieces that have led to this early success. There are a few pieces that I want to ask you about, but you mentioned all the offseason acquisitions. What has been the overall, I guess, impact, whether it's team speed, whether coaching? We should talk about Spencer Carberry as well, but let's just lead into some of those pieces that are leading to this early success.
Okay, now people kind of giggle when I say this, but a lot of the transformation is they got better hockey players. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but they literally just got guys who have higher skill. They are better skaters. They are younger, so they're fresher late in games. They got better hands. They got better shots. I mean, they just literally got better. And I mean, at the crux of the matter, that is where a lot of this improvement has come from. But in terms of structurally, this team is now playing the way Spencer Carberry wanted last year's team to play. If you remember, they changed schemes and identity kind of midway through last year. They squeaked into the playoffs in the last day of the regular season last year. That was a heck of an accomplishment for a team that was a minus 37. There was a lot of buy-in last year, but they had to change the way they played midstream. And I think Spencer Carberry, who got some Jack Adams trophy votes, deserved them last year for what he was able to do with that roster. But this year, they're playing with speed. They're playing on their toes. They're applying pressure to opponents all over the ice. Again, it sounds simplistic, but I think the biggest improvement has just been getting better hockey players. And if you want to drill down a little more, Craig, another thing that jumps out to me is the improvement of the players who were already here. Right. They went out and got Jacob Chikrin, who is, changed the blue line. Matt Roy, another, good defenseman, has added a lot. Pierre-Luc Dubois has done a great job, centering that second line. So, there have been some improvements talent-wise, but then you look at the guys internally. Connor McMichael, 10 goals. The guy had 18 last year. He's becoming a star in this league. Last year the question was, is he a center or is he a wing? I think the question now is, can this cat make all-star? Can he be an all-star? I mean, he's playing outrageously well for what we thought he was going to be in this league. I think he's now established himself not only as a good NHLer, but maybe a very, very good NHLer. And then you got Alexei Protas. I mean, he's taken a massive step from last year. And then Dylan Strome, the guy's on pace for like 120 points. I mean, I know on pace is a dangerous word, 15 games into the season, but he's playing out of his mind too. So a lot of the guys who are holdovers have also stepped up. And I think you put all that together, everyone on the same page with a good coaching staff, and you got a team that looks like they'll be able to challenge for the Metro Division crown.
I want to talk about one of the players you just mentioned was Dylan Strome. In the previous iteration of this Utah Hockey Club, back when they were in Arizona, we don't use much on this show, but Dylan Strome was drafted 3rd overall, a guy that expected to be a star in this league, and then people started saying maybe he's a bust. But leads this Washington Capital team with 23 points in 18 games and clearly driving the offense. Is that all because of Ovechkin, or is he starting to really find his stride and where he fits in the NHL?
Yeah, I would go with the latter. there. It takes guys, some time to kind of find their fit in the NHL. Not everyone comes in, as a high first round draft pick and hits the ground running like an Austin Matthews or a Connor McDavid. Some people take a little bit of time. Everyone's trajectory is a little bit different. Everyone's development curve is a little bit different. I think Dylan Strome just took a little bit longer. And the thing that really jumps out to me about Dylan's improvement, I guess it's really twofold. It's the fact that Chicago gave him up for absolutely nothing. I mean, he was on the trash heap. They didn't qualify him, and the Capitals swooped in, signed him, and then he had a really good year, and they signed him to a bigger extension. And the other thing is, I remember when he signed that big extension, the 5-year, $25 million deal. I talked to someone really close to him, and they were like, "Listen, there are guys who go, oh, I've arrived, I'm good now." That's not Dylan's MO. That's not his DNA. He's going to double down and work harder and get better. He does that every single summer. He's done it every year of his life, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a guy who went to work. Went to the lab over the summer and just got better. He's continually done that, and now he's become a bona fide top 6 center in this league. And if he keeps playing the way he is, I mean, he's another guy. I mean, last year, sorry to jump around here, guys. Tom Wilson was the Capitals representative in the All-Star game. A Toronto guy, had a good start. I felt like Dylan Strome probably deserved it. I think, Alex Ovechkin's probably, if they were going to have an all-star game, would have been that guy this year. But I think Strome he's a guy who's going to play in some all-star games before this is said and done. He has really taken a big step.
I got to talk about this offense because they're averaging 4.13 goals per game. They're number 2 in the NHL. As Petey noted in the notes, they were 28th last year. You mentioned they got better players, but that's a big jump, Tarik. That's a big jump in offense.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think it's systematic tweaks. It's really, getting back to what I was saying a moment ago, which is, they are now playing that high octane style that Spencer Carberry wanted them to play. They possess the puck way more than other teams. If you look at the analytics, that always helps. The improvement in talent across the board has had a lot to do with it. And, last year, guys, the Capitals defensemen scored the second fewest goals in the NHL. Points were way down too, so they weren't getting a whole lot from the back end. Part of the reason they went out and got Jacob Chikrin, right? Now you got a guy who's, every year in double digits in goals, is capable of 30, 40, even more points. And he's off to a strong start. He's missed a few games because of injury, but he's off to a strong start. And, you bring in a guy like Chikrin who can run your second unit power play. And now that pushes, other guys into the right spots. And now you're starting to get some production from the back end. But, going back to what we were talking about a minute ago, I mean, a lot of this is guys, young players who have been drafted and developed here in Washington, taking not an incremental step, but a big step forward. I mean, McMichael is on pace for 55 goals. I mean, again, I think he's not. Is he going to finish with 50 goals? Probably not. But he's going to make that a big jump this year, and so is Alexei Protas. So those two guys in particular. When people ask me where is this offense coming from, it's that. I call them secondary scoring. I mean, they aren't really secondary scoring, but when you think of the Capitals and where the offense is going to come from, you think John Carlson, you think Alex Ovechkin, you think Dylan Strome. Now you got your second and third wave of guys starting to chip in offensively, and that's where those goals have come from.
All right, let's get to the headliner here. We got to talk about Alex Ovechkin's pursuit of Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record. He's got, I believe, 10 goals in 15 games, puts him on pace for 54 goals, which would be his 10th 50-goal season, also an NHL record. He's tied with Mike Bossy and Wayne Gretzky in that department as well. He's closing in on it. Gretzky has 894, Ovi has 863. He's on pace to break it this year. Tarik, what is driving this?
That's a great question. I get asked that every day. As soon as I step out of the house, fans, radio interviews, I've covered Ovi since his rookie season. I feel like I know him pretty well, and what I'm seeing is a player that is uber motivated by a few things. I think he was humbled and maybe even a little bit embarrassed by the way last year ended for him against the New York Rangers. They got swept out of the playoffs. They bottled him up pretty good. He had given so much down the stretch. He just didn't have anything in the tank once they got to the playoffs. I mean, remember, he's 39 years old, guys. I mean, what he's doing. Wayne Gretzky had, 9 goals at 38, and this guy already has 10, right? And we're just 15 games into the year. So I think uber motivated because of the way last year ended. I think he really went to work this offseason. He looks lighter on his skates. He looks more dialed in. He looks a little more coordinated is the wrong word, but I feel like he fumbled the puck a lot last year. And, now he's catching passes the way he did 7-8 years ago. The puck's coming off his stick the way it did 7-8 years ago. I mean, I don't know if there's the Fountain of Youth in Moscow or Dubai or wherever you went this summer, but whatever it is absolutely working for him. And I think there's some really good chemistry with that line. I mean, he and Dylan Strome have been connecting. Strome has assisted on all 10 of his goals to this point.
Great.
Alexei Protas, like we've talked about him a number of times, he's having a breakout year. And going back to the chemistry between Ovi and Strome, Strome last year, it's funny, at the start of the year, his teammates were calling him Cy Young because he had like 8 goals and no assists. This year, it's like the other way around. I mean, he's scoring, but he's putting more of a premium and more of an emphasis on setting up Ovi. He's not trying to force it to him. He's just kind of transitioned from maybe a shoot first centerman to a guy who wants to get the puck to his wingers. And that's made a big difference. But I mean, just to my eyes, Ovi just looks to be determined. He looks to be in better shape. He looks to be moving his feet a little bit better than he did last year. And, throughout the 20 years that I've covered Ovi, one thing I can say has been consistent is when he starts getting close to big numbers, he just doubles down. And I think he can smell it now. I mean, guys, I was preparing like my articles and all my things for TV for like next year. Like we were like, oh yeah, October, November 25, right? Now it's like, boys, we better figure this out like pretty soon. Thank goodness for the Four Nations Cup break that's coming up because no trip to Aruba or anywhere warm for me. I'm going to be cranking out Ovi feature stories because he's going to break it this year.
Yeah, I don't want to skip past that because it's unbelievable. It's an incredible storyline to get to cover on a daily basis. But does he talk about the future? Is the assumption that he's going to play out his contract, which expires after next season? Is he talking about playing beyond that? Does he talk about 1,000 goals?
He doesn't. And it's funny. Spencer Carberry talked about this the other day. Part of what makes Ovi special and mentally tough is he doesn't get caught up in looking far ahead. And I know it's a cliche and we hear it all the time in sports, but some of the most focused athletes are the ones who are just looking at Friday's game at Colorado and then, the game after that and then playing Utah on Monday. I mean, like they just don't get caught up in the hype. And that really describes Ovi to a T. And again, like I said, I've covered him for 2 decades and you can ask him, like if I asked him right now, guys, and he's gonna be out there on the ice in a few minutes. If I asked him, hey, I was just talking to some guys from on TV, and they were asking me, are you getting to 1,000 goals? He'd be like, I'm worried about getting 11 goals, Tarik. I'm like 1,000 goals. What are you talking about? Like that would literally be his answer. He's focused on getting his 11th goal, which I think being able to compartmentalize that stuff, especially when the pressure is going to be immense when he starts getting closer. I mean, there's going to be live cut-ins on ESPN every time the Capitals go on the power play. Wayne Gretzky's going to be in a sky suite for all of these games. I mean, yep. The pressure is going to be immense. It's going to be so much fun, but I think Ovi is hardwired to deal with those kind of situations because he just, he's just like this.
Well, Tarik, I think Utah fans on next Monday at the Delta Center are going to be watching number 8 all over the ice. But with as well as this team is playing, can you give us the 3 things to look for other than Alex Ovechkin to be the keys to this game and something Utah fans should be looking for on Monday night's game?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's really been confounding for the Capitals coaching staff has been the uneven, I'm being generous, play of the power play. It's been a little bit better lately. To me, it feels like it's due for a breakout. It's been bottom 3 or 4 for most of the year, which is how it started last year, and then it ended up, one of the better ones in the league. I think it was number 1 from the All-Star break on. I feel like it's going in that direction again, so watch out on the power play. They're starting to figure things out. They're starting to move guys around. Ovi's starting to feel it. John Carlson's starting to feel it. So keep an eye on the power play. And the other thing that I'm going to be curious about, and I think fans might want to watch too, is Lars Eller was just reacquired by the Capitals from the Penguins. Remember, he was here, scored the game-winning goal in Game 5 in Las Vegas when they won the championship back in 2018. He got dealt away at the deadline a couple of years ago, ended up in Colorado, then Pittsburgh. Well, they just reacquired him because the one real soft spot or question mark in the Capitals lineup 15 games in has been third-line center. So essentially, they just went back and got the third-line center they probably should have never gotten rid of in the first place. So he's back. I think he's going to play Friday at Colorado, but I'm not sure. But at some point, he's going to be in the lineup, and I think you're going to see a team that is not a 3-line team anymore. I think it's going to be a 4-line team. I think they just got a heck of a lot better. And a player that I'm sure a lot of Utah/Coyotes fans are familiar with, Jacob Chikrin. He's fun, man. He's a one-man breakout. He's feeling it right now. Didn't have his best game against Toronto, but I mean, he can put the moves on, and it is really fit in on the back end with John Carlson. Those two guys, both offense first guys, but I would say, I'll take it back. I retract that statement. They are two-way defensemen who have a lot of offense in them, and when they're out there together, they read the game the same way. They think the game the same way, and they are a lot of fun. They can shut down opposing forwards, but they also can light it up on the score sheet. They are a lot of fun. So I'd watch those 3 things.
All right, buddy. I can't thank you enough for taking some time to talk to us. Enjoy the season. Enjoy this. As a journalist, right? This is what you hope for. You hope for storylines like this that
Absolutely.
You get to chronicle. This has got to be a blast. You might even consider writing a book, buddy, at some point.
I might.
Thanks a lot of work, though, isn't it?
Thanks, Tarik.
We all silly like the mayor.